Hey guys, it's Filmington, and today I am going to be doing a mail bin video, some high-end baseball items that I've picked up over the last month or month and a half. First group of cards I'm going to show is going to be from a PSA submission order that I just got back from Mike O. This is a max value of $4.99, so these 6 cards are going to be somewhat, mid to higher end. Mike O is a legend in the YouTube community, so if you're not already subscribed to him, please do. He does a lot of box breaks, a lot of retail, some hobby. He's a vintage as well as a modern singles collector as well. So definitely check out Mike O, no spaces. And all right, let's get started. So the first few cards, if you've watched my stuff, if you've watched my channel, you know that I don't really do too much of vintage anymore. But that was a move I recently, a transition I made probably mid-2019, and these cards are just left over, so I'm going to be selling these ones immediately, really. As of posting this video, these cards are probably already listed on Facebook groups. I find that vintage stuff, it's pretty easy to move on Facebook groups, unlike some of the modern baseball items. Maybe just the customers are, geez, that's going back and forth, huh? Maybe the customers have just more serious intentions. Maybe they have larger bankrolls on the vintage groups. I don't know, but I've had good success. So 57 tops, a set that not everybody likes. Got some photography issues. Aesthetics are questionable. Registration issues, stuff like that. But here's Willie Mays. I think it was maybe undergraded a bit. I was thinking more of a 6, but I guess the eye appeal is probably more worthy of a 5 when looking at the stronger 6s out there. Corners and edges are strong on this beast. So I'll be listing the prices here. No guarantees that they haven't been sold yet, but just reach out to me if you're interested, especially in these vintage items. Next up, this one is a strong 6, I thought. You can tell just by comparing the two that the Clementes are just a bit more clear. Not perfectly centered, but pretty damn close. Strong edges, strong corners here, and yeah, pretty happy with this grade. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd probably give it a 6.5, but all around nice card of Roberto. Next up, this is definitely not deserving of anything greater than 3.5, so I was happy with this grade. Overall, pretty good eye appeal on this, but corners and edges are 3.5 like. Oh, of course, this is the second year Hank Aaron. Pretty desirable card. All right, so next up, some of the modern items that were in that order. This one is the third Bowman Chrome autograph. I wish I still had more. Regretfully sold a bunch of his stuff when it came out in, I think, April 2019. Wander Franco, probably a top 10 prospect in the game at this point. He's still 18 years old. He tore up, I think, rookie and A-ball this year. And next year, some people think that he might make his debut in September. And I think that depends on the organization's willingness to take a chance on him. It depends on where Tampa Bay is in the standings, if they're making a run for another wild card. And it also depends on his development, first and foremost, probably. So wasn't terribly disappointed with the 9. This card did have a factory dimple in it, so satisfied with that for sure. This one I was a bit disappointed with. I bought this one raw. This is Carlos Correa's first Bowman autograph, numbered to 500. It's the refractor. Centering is really nice on this. The corners are pretty damn good, I thought, too. But it does have a few lines in it, refractor type lines. I thought that would drop it down to a 9 and not an 8.5. At this point, I might just crack it out and try to sell it raw. It's got a scratch here too. So factory vertical, and I think a scratch horizontal, post factory. Next up, this one I'm satisfied with. I actually bought this in a BGS 9.5 slab with quad 9.5 subgrades. So you might ask, like, why did I snap it out? Well, I did because it had an auto of a 9, and I thought that if we could get a PSA 10, then, you know, that would be certainly worth it. And the reason why I cracked it out of the slab before submitting it to PSA was because the slab was pretty dirty, and you could tell there were some things that I thought were debris that were stuck between the slab and the actual card, and I thought that might turn away PSA. I was willing to take a risk on it, and I was right. The debris was not on the card that I could see, but then because the slab was pretty cloudy, and Beckett slabs are known to not be as transparent perhaps as PSA, they're a little bit thicker. There were a bunch of refractor lines that I hadn't seen before. So then I was like, oh, Jesus, this is at most a 9. Even if I had submitted it back to Beckett, it probably wouldn't have gotten a quad 9.5, just based on the standards of basically the grading standards have probably increased over time, I've heard, at least with respect to refractor lines. So hopefully he's got a comeback season next year in him. I'm going to be holding that card for a little bit. I need him to be healthy before I sell that. And that is it for the PSA submission. Here's some other stuff I picked up. This is Propstein. Who doesn't love a blue refractor? And this is a guy that I really like. 4-pitch pitcher already, I believe. Throws hard. He's got a big frame. He's a lefty that throws hard, which is even more impressive. Last year, 2019, he was the top pitching prospect in baseball. And now he looks to be maybe healthy. So fingers crossed there. He avoided the knife, and he seemed healthy by the end of the year and in the playoffs. Hopefully he's got an innings cap of 160 and greater next year, but we'll see about that. Oakland really needs an ace to headline that staff, because I mean, they can only deal with the likes of Sean Manaea and other imposters like Mike Fears for so long. They need a frontline guy like Jesus Luzardo or AJ Puck to really be the difference maker there. Next, a little bit of a FOMO purchase, but use those eBay bucks and was able to pay effectively under $350 for this, which the golds have surpassed over the last month on average. So, and this is a card that's probably about doubled since people realized that Top Series 2 was the true rookie card for Tatis. Same stands for Alonso and Jimenez. And people don't always prefer the horizontal look, but in this case, you don't have a choice, really. Unless you want to go with the, some other different product. But when it comes down to it, guys, flagship, true rookies, I mean, they sell, and they're going to always be in demand. Now, there are some flags with Tatis next year. He struck out at a ridiculous clip. So is that batting average that he had of, 320 or so, is that sustainable throughout the course of a full season of at-bats for next year? I don't know. And for him to get injured, I think not just once but twice, in a back injury at such a young age. So there definitely are some flags there. He plays for the Padres. All in all, though, I think there's a lot of wonderful signs for Tatis to perhaps be one of the game's next great players. Top 10, even top 5, who knows? He's got that upside, and he's got one of the best arms in the league. He's got a great glove. He's got legs. He just contributes in so many ways, and the hobby loves those players. So as multifaceted as Ronald Acuna is, Tatis is right there with him in regards to all-around just skills, tools. Next up, this guy, he was in one of my recent speculation videos, Luis Arraez, not to be confused with Luis Urias. I realized afterwards that some people probably thought I said that until they saw the cards, so hopefully they stuck around to see the cards and saw that I was referring to the Twins Luis and not the Padres. This guy has a phenomenal hit tool. He hit .330 this year. He doesn't strike out that much. He also doesn't walk that much, which could serve against him a little bit. But he's got the abilities to put up a 300 average easily, even at the major league level, I believe. So we'll see what he can do next year. He doesn't have much power, and he does play for the Twins, a team that is likely to regress a bunch next year. Probably not hit 300 home runs as a team. All right. And that, of course, was his orange Bowman Chrome autograph number /25. Next up is another Arraez I'll show. This is black. Got this one for under 100, so I was really happy to do that. A lot of these are going for 110 plus. I've seen some over 135. And I think a lot of it had to do with the amount that were in circulation on eBay. With auctions, not minimum prices either. We're talking no reserve bids. We're talking like reserve prices. We're talking 99-cent initial bids. And so a bunch went in just a small window of time, and that was your window, I think, to pick up one of these blacks for pretty cheap. Because the golds are selling for $15 plus, which would mean that this should sell for around $140, but or $120 plus, but because blacks usually sell for about 8 times. This is not submission worthy, I don't think. Okay, I could get a 9, but if 9's my upside, even on a card that's $100 raw, I might not do it. Now, blacks are notoriously graded pretty harshly, and the pops are going to be pretty low, so I would definitely rethink it, but it's not a slam dunk decision, again, with that 9 being an upside. The upside there. Next up, we got Mike Trout. Didn't have this one yet. Adding this to the PC. Got a good deal on it. These don't come up often, nearly as frequently as the regular Topps update. So, I mean, it's pro debut. It's not the most desirable set, but it also has a much more limited print run. I can guarantee you, relative to Topps paper, to Topps update. Sweet card, pretty nicely centered, and probably the only pro debut card that I'll ever buy. I did pick up an Acuna last year, but that was numbered 10 and autographed. So usually I don't mess with pro debut. It's not a set that's known to retain its value very well. Next up, this wasn't really intentional, but put a bid and won it. I consider this a value buy. You might say I'm stupid, but Juan Soto, a few weeks after the World Series ends, the hype is already starting to die down. Actually, I probably did a week after it ended, and I'm sorry, but you're cherry picking. The risk is that you're cherry picking a sample size. If you just look at a small number of at bats and just look at his postseason performance in a vacuum. But at the same time, I saw some serious, what I thought were improvements, breakthroughs, whatever you want to call them. And this is going to be the best left-handed hitter in the game, I truly think, for the next 7 to 8 years, guys. He's incredible. His team wasn't stealing signs. Didn't matter. He teed off against Garrett Cole, vintage Garrett Cole. He teed off against, well, you might say a somewhat tired Justin Verlander, but he just made it look so easy, guys. You could just tell when he was in the zone, when he was acting the most, you might say pompous, I'll call it confident, staring back at the pitchers after what seemed to be harmless, ball threes or ball twos on 1 and 2 or 2 and 2 counts. And then the next pitch, he would just rope a liner to right field, or effortlessly hit a 115-mile-an-hour shot to the second deck of whatever stadium that was. I mean, I was just really, really impressed by Juan Soto. So, and I had to pay over $1,000 for this, and it's not numbered, but it is a PSA 10. It's going to be his holy grail card from now till the end of time, and I don't know, guys. There's a lot worse ways to allocate your money. Next up, Christian Yelich. Did not win the MVP. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer, to be honest. I do have a bunch of Bellinger stuff. Bellinger tailed off towards the end of the season. I think, accordingly, his hobby appeal kind of tailed off. So even though a lot of people kind of expected him to win that MVP, and his prices were probably already adjusted as so, accordingly, especially after Christian Yelich went down with an injury in early September. Next year, my money's on Yelich. Bellinger, almost like we saw a hint of 2018 in his final 2019 months. And that might not be completely fair because 2018 was a huge disappointment relative to 2019 for him. Would have been a great season for most ball players. But Bellinger's got a big swing. He's prone to slumps. He will strike out now and again. His splits against lefties, it seems, have significantly changed each year. So what's to say that this year is his new floor against left-handed pitchers? You're probably going to see some regression there. You're probably going to see a regression in power with him, but Yelich has done it, guys, 2 years in a row. He actually improved on most of his offensive stats this year versus a year ago, especially if you're to look at per game stats, because he did miss some at-bats this year. If you're to look at geek stats, which voters care about for MVPs and for Hall of Fame votes, they're going to care about those more as time goes on. If you look at his RC plus, which is a measure of offensive production, which is ballpark adjusted, it doesn't factor in defense. His RC plus was right there, if not better than Bellinger. If you look at his weighted OBA, that's a measure that's offensive oriented. It's doesn't factor in defense, and it's not ballpark adjusted. So playing in Milwaukee definitely helped that, and it inflated his numbers a bit. But he absolutely crushed Cody Bellinger. If it wasn't for the Bellinger being a top 5 or 10 defensive player in the league, and if he was more like average, then I think Yelich would have won this award by a landslide, actually. He had him beat at those traditional stats, too, if you want to talk about on-base percentage and average and slugging and stuff like that. Maybe not total home runs. He didn't have the same number plate appearances. We talked about that. But Yelich is, what is he now, 27? And he is a force, guys. So the beginning of the year, this year, or at this time last year, you might be thinking like, okay, this was a fluke. He's going to regress big time. So I do a lot of fantasy baseball leagues, and I'll admit, I dropped him down. Everybody's taking him in the top, with the top 16 picks or so, and I had him down in the 3rd round. I just didn't see it, guys. But he did it again, and he was even better. And he's not slowing down anytime soon, I don't think. So this, at the time I bought it, it was actually the same day that MVPs were announced. I kind of wanted to hedge my Bellinger bets and make a decision that I didn't regret if he didn't win the MVP. So I picked up one of his better values, I thought, in a PSA 10 for his Topps Update cards. I also looked at Topps Chrome, Bowman Chrome I looked at a little bit too. But I looked at the Target Red, the Gold, black was a little bit out of my price range, but the Walmart Blue I looked at, the Camo, and using the eBay bucks, I was able to get this for a pretty good price, in line with comps, actually, post-injury. So I'll take it, guys, and it's really nicely centered. New flip. Some people will say that they prefer the older flips. Less chance the card's been altered, but I'll take it. All right, so that was a long spiel on Christian Yelich, huh? All right, so I got a few more cards to show. This one I'll need 3-4 concurrently. 3D stands. So usually I don't mess around too much with prospects, especially guys that haven't made it to AA ball yet. But Julio Rodriguez, Marco Luciano, and Wander Franco are 3 guys that I definitely have my eyes on. Marco Luciano is the guy that I was targeting outside of Wander, to be honest. But then I had noticed that Julio Rodriguez cards are selling for more. And then I looked at the prices of purples. A lot of people don't like purples. I would say more people don't like shimmers. And for the most part, I've stayed away from shimmers and waves. Purples, I will toy around with every once and again. Number to 250, of course. which is what you have in front of you. All three of these are purples. And I had noticed that comps-wise, the Luciano purples were selling for about 2x, maybe even a little bit more than 2x the base. And then I saw that Julio Rodriguez, again, his base was selling for more than Luciano. This was like, 1 to 3 weeks ago. So when I found his purples for cheaper than Luciano's purples, that's when I pounced on them. So instead of that 2x or 2.25x multiplier, I was getting more like 1.5 or 1.75x. So of course I've got the True Gem Plus here, and I got a really good deal on one of these PSA 10s. The other one I kind of had to pay up for, but all in all, I'm happy with this purchase. Julio Rodriguez is a guy that people expect to have a ton of raw power. He showed some flashes of brilliance this year. He had an average over 400, I believe, in A-ball. Him, Wander, and Luciano, I believe, were all 18 years of age. So a lot of people are looking at Kelenic right now. Some people have already clearly looked at Julio Rodriguez again. I mean, this is a guy who's his base autograph in a Bowman Chrome 9.5 is selling for high 200s. If you want his True Gem or True Gem Plus, you're looking at low to mid 300s plus. So, and again, the multiplier on these, usually I wouldn't mess around with purples. Usually I like to keep with the standard colors, the blues, the oranges, the golds, the reds, the regular refractor, because investors and collectors usually seek those out, and so do I. But I've had good luck in the past with purples. I've had good luck in the past with greens, actually, to be honest. You just have to be willing to take a little bit of a risk, be willing to hold the card for a little bit longer, and you're willing to fall into some good deals, especially if you can buy purples and greens via auctions, I notice. Because at some point, the purples will sell for quite a bit more than the regular refractors, and the greens will sell for close to, if not the same as blues. It happens, guys. I've seen it. I've seen it with Soto. I've seen it with Acuna. I've seen it with other players. I've seen it with Bellinger towards the beginning of this year. So that is why I have gone back to the purple. And again, the arbitrage play against Luciano. I still would probably prefer Marco Luciano. I'm not going to feature Julio Rodriguez in my speculation series. I think he's priced out. Luciano's got more plate discipline. Might not have as much raw power, but he does have a bunch. And he's got the game power. He's got the hit tool as well, where Julio Rodriguez, I think, has more room to develop. He's primarily a pull hitter. He's perhaps right now a liability against the shift until he can put the ball in the opposite direction a little bit more and maybe hit a few less ground balls. But this is still a stud, guys. He's still 18 years old. And again, I mean, I'm not targeting because it's Julio, but it's because it's the arbitrage game, it's the Holy Grail card, and it's me having faith in the purples. That is it for today, guys. Hopefully you liked what you saw. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Philmington out.